Welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Creighton Show. Today, we're going to go all the way to France because there's a lot of things happening abroad that we need to know about. And it just goes to show, even in 2026, we got people that are still thinking way ahead of time and really, even more importantly, putting their own personal things aside, their traumas, their fears, re-energizing is what I might call it, that beast mindset, and saying to themselves, out of everything that I've gone through, what can I bring to the next generation? And we have a young lady here who has done that in a heck of a lot more. Let's welcome to the show, Miss Amy. Let me get that last name.
That's right.
How are we doing, girl?
I'm doing great. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
France, what time is it over there?
It is 4:00 in the afternoon.
Okay, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
What's it like being in France? What's that like?
It's been the best winter I've ever lived through. I'm down in the south of France, so I'm on the Mediterranean. It's been a beautiful sunny day. I was out doing my workout at the track with a sea view, mountain view. It's gorgeous.
Wow.
Yeah.
Before we get started into the new series of books, we won't talk about that right now. Tell the viewers a little bit about who you are.
Yeah. I started off with my career as a professional dancer, and I went to college for dance. I went to a private university for 4 years. I studied ballet, tap, jazz, music theater, acting, lyrical, you name it, like every dance form, and was a performer. I moved to New York. I knew I wanted to go to New York since I was 13. I had never been there. I just knew that's where I was going. And I did it. I moved to New York. I lived in Los Angeles as well as a professional dancer, performer, also teaching classes. I was teaching dance, movement, health, wellness through New York, LA. And then I founded an NGO in the middle of that dance program that I founded and started in Bosnia Herzegovina. And I ran that for 11 successful years. And that was one of my really incredible time in life and a heart project that's still very dear to me. I still have big connections there with friends and people that are like my family.
You mentioned Bosnia. Is that where you were born and raised? That's where where everything took place for you?
No, actually, I was born and raised in San Antonio, Texas. And then I lived in New York for several years, went to the West Coast, and then from the West Coast, I moved there, and I lived in Bosnia for a little over a year.
What took you to Bosnia? Because you seem to be very spontaneous and living outside of the matrix, kind of like, you're going to do whatever it is you want to do to make you happy and see fulfillment. But what led you to go to Bosnia and all these other places? Was it to home in on your craft, or was it just a itch that you felt you had to do?
Yeah, I was living in LA at the time, and I was kind of going through just a moment in life where I felt like I want more, and I'm not sure what that is right now. And so I went on a volunteer trip for 2 weeks, and that trip happened to be in the Balkans, right outside of Sarajevo in Bosnia. And I fell in love with the country. There was something very special there. I call it my soul country. I've every time I arrive, I feel at home. I feel at ease. I've some of the most important people in my life I've met there and are from there. So it really was. I do live outside of the matrix. I've lived a very unconventional life, and I ended up there on a 2-week volunteer trip, and that changed the course of a large part of my life.
When you say Bosnia, especially in the States, we always hear devastation
Mm.
and corruption and religious persecution, political persecution. You were pretty young when you went there, I assume.
Yeah, I was 26 when
Were
I
you
went.
exposed to the culture in Bosnia prior to going over there?
No, I really didn't know much. I knew that it was about 10 years after the war that took place there in the 90s. And all I knew about it was exactly as you're saying, it was a war-torn, country. And that's not what I experienced at all. I mean, there was devastation. You can still see the remnants of the war. It's still very much there, but I also saw the depth of the people and the culture and the beauty of the land and so much more that we weren't really educated about, in the US. It was painted as a devastation place, as you said. Yeah.
When you say at that age and you go there and you see something that's totally different, what was it that you took away from there, and what did you felt you had to bring that to the country at such a young age that they were missing, that you later carry to this day into what you're doing with the books? And we'll get into that in a minute.
Okay, I was really inspired to help rebuild the arts. It's a very artistic culture, and I saw an opportunity to bring a dance program there and help the young minds have some inspiration through art and through creation and through connection with themselves and with others. And so that's what I started with. And I would run an intensive for 2 weeks in the winter and then produce a show. And then I would do the same thing in the summer, 2 weeks over the summer, and then we would produce a show. And we drew kids from the small villages throughout the Balkans to the kids from Sarajevo we went and we traveled, we toured throughout the country. We set up our intensives in other cities. And then we were fortunate enough to also bring a group to New York for 2 weeks for a very special youth summit, international youth summit. So we really, I grew it very grassroots. I ended up bringing in a team, brought in teachers from uh, all over the world to be a part of the project. And we performed it at the Sarajevo Film Festival during the summers. We would perform in beautiful theaters throughout the country, and it really just kept growing and expanding. And we ended up with a core group of dancers that came back every year.
How difficult was it at such a young age to put the pieces in place? And what was the mindset of the people there, uh, just coming out of such uh, uh, um, devastation of war?
Yeah, that was another aspect of the programming to really uplift people's minds and have something that they could uh, invest themselves into that was positive, uplifting, that was also movement based. So there was, they were very open. I feel that I really met the kids that came in, the families that came into the project and into the program were very open to this. They were really wanting and craving this sort of outlet, this sort of creative outlet.
What was their impression of you as an individual, as a young girl from the United States? Because when you hear of Americans traveling abroad to other countries, it's almost like the coming of Christ. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Like,
mhm,
what was their impression, and what was their knowledge of somebody from the United States? Like, how
mhm.
did they view you coming over to their country?
Yes, I know exactly I think what you're speaking to. And I received such a warm welcome every time I was there. I really, really connected with the people, with the families, with the kids in the program, with the people that I met along the way, the team that was from there. But I was very, very, very aware and very mindful around not being one of these Americans that's going to another country and trying to change something or trying to impose our beliefs or our way on them. It was more about how do we collaborate, create together, and just wanting to bring something to enhance their lives and create more opportunity.
What were you afraid of? Or let me rephrase this, because
Mm,
I know you're fearless. At 20 some years old, you're fearless. Nothing can touch you. But let's get real.
mm,
You're going over to a country that just come out of some terrible situations. The mindset is not the same. There might be undeveloped minds or um, war beliefs of
mhm.
country against country, and you're coming over here at 23 years old with a certain projections of how we saw what was going on, and
Mhm.
you're actually stepping in the forefront. Was there ever any fear that you was worried about happening to you?
No, never, never. I could honestly say that. I had a lot of people say, you know, kind of question what I was doing, question my vision. And I remember saying, that's just not my story. And I have this vision and I see it. I see that this is possible. And all I have to do is continue, just one step at a time, continue. But I never felt afraid arriving there. I never felt unsafe. I never felt, um, really, it was just witnessing the devastation was the hardest part that these people had endured, and then the friends that I know there, that knowing and hearing about their stories of what they went through, that was really the hardest part of it, and being removed from that in a sense of there was nothing I could do at that time to help that aspect. And yeah.
When you reflect back, and I'm gonna tell the viewers where we're going with this so they can understand. This is a story that a culture, a culture impacted you, impact on you
Mhm.
at a young age of 23, coming back to the United States, dealing with your own stuff, which we're gonna get into in a minute, that helped create what you're about to create with these children novels. So let's go
Mm.
back a little bit.
Mhm.
Now you're sitting there and they're sharing stories with you. What are some of the most impactful stories that you remember? Because these are also stories that I'm pretty sure you're going to implement in your creation. But and what are some of those stories that you remember sharing with them while you was there, and why was these particular stories still resonating to you today?
Mm. There was so much hope, and there was a hunger for wanting to expand beyond the circumstances that they were dealing with and having to live through and having to suddenly change in their lives, that I think that is what inspired me to bring something tangible that could help them, that could change their lives, or that could be something that allowed for them to move through this post conflict time in as healthy of a way as possible, or with as much support as possible, and feeling that support from different places in the world, especially from the U.S. That was, across the Atlantic. That there's somebody out there that sees you, that cares, that has your best interest in mind, and is dedicated and committed to this mission and to, yeah.
But what story really impacted you? Like, was it a story? Let's just use a name by Soviet that might have
Mhm.
said something,
Mhm.
or Regina, or
Mhm.
let's break that down a little bit. Which one of those stories do you really remember the most of that really impacted you deeper?
The stories of the people losing their family members, my dear friends there that lost a family member in the war, the children that lost a family member, a parent or a sibling in the war, and how could they possibly recover from that, and how they did recover, and how they have moved forward with such strength and beauty, and moving through that sort of pain, that it's, and for I think what also really impacted me is for what? For what this conflict amongst countries, for power, for war, for
Resources.
resources, land, money, control for this. That so many lives have to be destroyed for that, and we're seeing that repeat right now. And that where you just go, what can I do? What can I do here? Just one person somewhere else in the world, but how can I make somebody's life better?
When you came back to the States, how did you proceed with doing this? And let me ask another part of this question. You didn't have really a lot of role models yourself. So how did you manage to come back to the United States and implement a plan with, let's call it what it is,
Mhm.
limited resources for yourself? And what I mean by limited resources is, who were you looking up to help you to stay on course? Because you can't be of any benefit to anybody else if you really don't have a supporting cast yourself.
Right, right. I had people along the way, some role models that inspired me, especially when I moved to New York before several years before I started this program. Um, the doers, the people that were doing in life, that is what inspired me. And whether I knew them or not, I picked up on it. And that was momentum for me. To have the vision is one thing, but to follow through on your vision is a completely different beast, different animal, really, you know. Um, and it did change my perspective coming back to the U.S. every time. There was a little culture shock coming back to the U.S. and seeing things in just a different way after, um, yeah, being in a country that was recovering from war, to coming to the U.S. that at that time was, my first trip there was in 2005. So to give you a little reference to about that time frame. So coming back throughout the mid 2000s, uh, the U.S. was quite abundant at that time, was doing quite well in many ways.
How did you wind up getting the plan to be accepted? Because it's almost like you're now becoming a diplomatic aid, so to speak,
Mhm.
diplomacy to
Mhm.
the people. Like, who did you get to help you?
Well, um, I started with an organization there. So on my volunteer trip, the organization that hosted that volunteer program, the day I was leaving, I said, "Would you ever be open to having a dance program here?" They had the facilities, they had the land, they had, all I could bring in the program. They could hold the space. And uh, he and his wife said, absolutely. They were French. They were living there. They lost their son. Their son was a soldier in the war. They lost their son in the war. So they were very committed to this mission as well. Um, and just took that one conversation, that one question, and the one yes. And that's also something I've learned in life, is that you just have to speak up. And so I came back to the US with inspiration. I built out the program. We communicated over email through those several months. I didn't even hire a lawyer at the time. I went to Barnes and Noble. I picked up the how to, like one of those dummies books, how to get your
I use
501c3.
those books all the time.
And I had like a CD, and I figured out how to get my 501c3 number, for $50 instead of hiring a lawyer. And so that it was me and this organization. And then over time, I just started to meet incredible teachers, incredible people that came into the team that were able to bring in their skills and bring in their ideas. And it was a small knit team, but we were very powerful in what we did
And
together.
It's truly beautiful when you start to see a dream unfold and become reality.
Mm,
When you when it actually became into life, when you
mhm.
actually breathed in and then seen it coming, how many people that you came in contact with prior to this? Because this wasn't an overnight project. How many of those people that you met when you was 23 years old who are now older
Mhm.
came to be a part of this new project that you incorporated?
How many people did I know before that?
Like the ones that you talked to when you was 23 and you was over there and you was having this vision, and
Uh-huh.
now that the vision is there, did any of those people that you met now become part of your mission, the dance schools and so forth?
Yeah, so when I was there, I was meeting the organizers of the volunteer trip. That was one, and then the children, and then their families, and then every time I went, I was just meeting more people, developing friendships, developing really strong relationships there, and they all became part of the project in some way or another over the 11 years.
Now,
Yeah.
let's go
Yeah.
deeper.
Okay.
2 books in the 2 months. That's
Yeah.
crazy. And
Yeah.
let's talk about this book because a lot of this stemmed from that trip that you had at 23 years old.
Yeah.
Hello, Harlow
Yes.
series. Tell me about
Yeah.
that, how that came to be, and what's your mission with Hello Harlow?
So I'm clearly very passionate about inspiring young minds. And I believe that if we all remembered as humans, if we were able to maintain who we are for as long as possible before the matrix comes in, before the conditioning, before the programming starts to take over, if we could just hold on to that for as long as possible, we would live in a very different world, right? Because we are all abundant, loving, joyful beings. And that's what I want children to maintain for as long as possible, is that inner authority, the awe and wonder, and um, to stay connected to that part of themselves, because that's where so many adults are now working through, is trying to remember who they were when they came into the world. There's a lot of work being done now on this to unravel the belief systems, the negativity, the lack of confidence, because it just wasn't instilled, at a young age. So I'm really passionate to take this forward now, take this passion into this form of writing. And it was inspired by my first niece. I have a second niece now, so now I'm really inspired to keep developing this series. It's to encourage kids to live soulfully, and to educate them on how to live a healthy life, so that even at a young age they can choose, the broccoli over the processed package of food. They can take that agency for themselves, and they understand what they're choosing, rather than just being shoved something and then they just eat it, and they don't know what they're putting in their body, or they don't know what they're putting in their mind. So that's where this has started.
How much of you is in Harlow?
Mm. She is a kindred spirit. I feel her brightness. I feel her light, so open to the world. And every time, she's 2 years old now, so every time I'm around her, it's uh, it brings me back to remembering, who I am, and where I started, and maintaining that for myself too. So mm,
Without giving up too much of the book, because I want the viewers to actually pick up the book. It's a good read for children in mind development. But what are some of the difficult things that Harlow is going to face in the first 2 books that are out currently, and what are some of the things that you foresee her trying to really overcome in today's society, because in today's society, let's get real. Everything is a text, everything is a like, everything is about numbers.
Mm.
It's a different it's a different beast. Let's call it
Right.
what it is. I grew up in the era where you had to remember your phone number. Now I couldn't tell you a phone number. So
Right.
we in other words, we have to adapt. This is part of life. Evolution
Yeah.
is adaptation. Tell me some of the things that's going to make this book and Harlow's trip into the life of the future versus being caught up in the matrix.
Right. So there's power in, we know there's power in I am, and there's a great power in you are. And so this is instilling in their minds, you are talented, you are intelligent, you are brilliant, you are creative. So it's allowing them to see, allowing children to see themselves through Harlow, that they are also abundant and bright and interesting and unique, and they have something to offer. So the challenges that I see, I have, it's an interesting question because I've kept it so much on the positive of reminding children, of instilling these beliefs in them so that they're growing up with this inner knowing. They are confident, and they know that they are resourceful, and that they know that they matter in the world.
Yeah, I got you. I just think that when you're writing books, I'm not trying to tell nobody how to be a writer,
Mm.
but we hear a lot about overcoming, but we don't
Mhm.
tell our children that sounds great in a book, but reality is you're going to be met
Mhm.
with conflict. You're going to
Mhm.
be met with things that you may not know how to deal with. I take it that n- you're an author that is actually going to empower the good, the bad, and the ugly in a story that is meant for children, but not to sugarcoat what life is really about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that having this honesty around it, and by instilling these mindset tools and this belief in themselves, that when you're met with challenges, this is how you can work through it because you are in touch with who you are, right? So it's a teaching children also how to listen within, to meet those challenges and to be able to make a clear decision when they're met with
I like the
conflict.
way,
Yeah.
yeah, I like the way you use the power of words to help to amplify the journey. I think, I tell people all the time, I don't, I can take a hit all day long, but words are like the cutting edge. They will definitely take you down a road that you clearly don't want to go down. Before we wrap up, I'm gonna ask a question. Who were your role models? Who did you have to lean on?
Yeah. My grandparents were artists, and I really looked to them and their artistry. My grandfather was a professional violinist in the San Antonio Symphony, and my grandmother was a painter, and she played multiple different instruments. And my childhood was very musical, was very interactive and creative. And that I think has been a big inspiration in terms of my creative career and seeing what was possible for myself as a creative and as a dancer, and the power of the arts and the power of creativity, of what it opens up in a person, what it awakens in a person, what it unleashes in a person. And this is where I also believe in, if every person could just tap into you, you are your own creator, create your life, create your reality. This is not what we're taught generally, but creation is the source of everything. So
And I think you also have to also remind people this too. Just because I tell you about my life doesn't mean that I'm going to invite you into my life,
mhm,
because you might bring something into my life that may not align with the bigger picture. Does that
mhm.
make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big believer in having your inner circle is very is intentional and mindful, and not everybody is in that world. That's personally mine's a small one. I'm not one that I have lots of people that I love in my life, but that inner circle is special.
You know what? I really appreciate you taking time to come on the show and tell us about the books that you're doing, the series. How often will these series come out?
So I just released Hello Harlow in November, December, and then I did a Hello Harlow calendar activity book, which is great for children of all ages and great for the family to be able to have conversations. Each month has four different prompts, a different prompt for each week to get their minds thinking about the world in different ways, connecting with themselves, connecting with others. Each month has a theme. So, for example, just July, is about kindness, is about fairness, is about thinking of others. Yeah, so every month has this theme, and then a way to incorporate that through activities, through self expression, and through conversation with their family. So now those two are out, and I am writing my next one this spring.
Wow, that sounds totally beautiful. How can the viewers reach out to you, get more information on the books, and more importantly, the fact that you do have a non-profit which consists of dancing? How can they get all this information?
Yes, I am on Instagram. We have Hello Harlow Book. So you can find Hello Harlow Book on Instagram. You can also find my Instagram. I am Amy D, AMYDD. And I also, you can email me. I'm at amy at soulviewlife.com. And that soulview is SOL, like the sun, SOLVIEW.com.
Now, how did you come up with that name, Soul View?
Soul view, because the view of your soul is limitless. And that's what I live by. And that's what I bring forward in all my teachings and work.
I like the way you said that. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you subscribe, like, share, follow. Make sure you get a copy of that book. It's good information. On this show, we always make sure that we educate, empower, and make sure we keep that beast mindset for everybody. Amy, thanks so much for taking time to come on the show. Enjoy that ocean. Enjoy the French Riviera and all everything else that goes along with where you at. Love to have you come back and talk to us more about new projects that you got coming up. Ladies and
Absolutely.
gentlemen,
Thank you.
this has been another, and I do mean another, exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Creighton Show.